What if I told you that your government has a credit card and it has no limit? A card it uses to fund everything from roads and hospitals to massive crisis bailouts. Sounds pretty great, right? But here's the trillion-dollar question that keeps economists up at night. Who eventually pays the bill? Is it you? Your kids? Or is it possible that the bill never actually comes due? Welcome back to Finance Intel, the channel that gives you the keys to the financial kingdom. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on one of the biggest, most misunderstood forces shaping our world, government debt. Forget the boring news reports. We're going on a journey to understand why governments, from Washington to London to Tokyo, seem to be caught in a powerful, inescapable addiction to borrowing. Is this a sophisticated economic strategy, or are we witnessing the biggest financial gamble in human history? Stick around, because the answer will change the way you see your money, your country, and your future. The trillion-dollar tsunami. First, let's get a handle on the sheer scale of what we're talking about. This isn't just a small leak, it's a global tsunami of debt. Right now, in most major developed countries, the level of government debt compared to their entire economic output, their GDP, is as high as it was in 1945. Let that sink in. The last time the world was this leveraged was right after the most destructive war in history. How do we get back here? It wasn't one single event. It was a relentless series of mega shocks. 1. The 2008 financial crisis. The global economy was on life support, and governments fired up the borrowing machine to prevent a total collapse. 2. The COVID-19 pandemic. Lockdowns, stimulus checks, healthcare funding. Governments became the ultimate insurer for everyone, and the only way to pay for it was to borrow on a historic scale. 3. Wars and geopolitical tensions. Defense spending is on the rise, and it's incredibly expensive. In a crisis, borrowing makes sense. You do whatever it takes. But the strange thing is, even when the crisis is over, the borrowing, it doesn't stop. It's become the new normal. And that's where an emergency measure starts to look a lot like an addiction. The politician's paradise. Why say no? So, why is debt so irresistible? To understand that, you have to think like a politician. Imagine you're running for office. You have two options. Option A, you tell the voters, I'm going to raise your taxes and cut popular services like healthcare and education to balance the budget. Option B, you tell them, I'm going to give you new benefits, build shiny new infrastructure, and cut your taxes. We'll just borrow the money to pay for it. Which option do you think wins the election? It's a no-brainer. Borrowing is the ultimate political cheat code. It allows politicians to give voters what they want right now while pushing the cost, the actual repayment, onto some future generation. It's the definition of buy now, pay later. For decades, this strategy was supercharged by one magical ingredient: ridiculously low interest rates. When borrowing is cheap, almost free, why wouldn't you do it? It felt like a free lunch. But as we're all feeling in our own wallets now, inflation has returned and interest rates have shot up. And suddenly, the interest payments on that mountain of debt are becoming astronomical. Think about it. In the US, the government spent nearly $800 billion last year just on interest payments. That's more than the entire military budget. That's money that can't be spent on innovation, healthcare, or education because it's essentially just feeding the debt machine. The heretic's view. What if debt is good? Okay, so far it sounds pretty bad, but this is where the story gets a fascinating twist. What if I told you there's a school of thought that says government debt isn't a problem at all? In fact, it might even be essential. This is the core idea behind something called modern monetary theory, or MMT. It's controversial, but it's an idea you need to understand. Here's the argument in simple terms. A government is not like a household. You and I have to earn money before we can spend it. A country that controls its own currency, like the US with the dollar or Japan with the yen, can literally create money out of thin air. From this perspective, when the government spends more than it collects in taxes, runs a deficit, it's not losing money. It's injecting money into the private economy. That money becomes the income for businesses and the savings in your bank account. In other words, the government's red ink is our black ink. According to this theory, the real limit isn't the debt itself, but inflation. A government can and should keep spending and borrowing until the economy reaches its full potential, as long as it doesn't cause prices to spiral out of control. It's a radical idea that completely flips the script. It suggests that our fear of debt is based on a misunderstanding of how modern money actually works. So, who's right? The traditionalists who warn of a debt apocalypse, or the MMT heretics who say, spend on? The answer lies with a mysterious group of people you've probably never heard of. The showdown. Meet the bond vigilantes. In the old Wild West, if a town got out of control, a lone sheriff would ride in to restore order. In the world of global finance, that role is played by the bond vigilantes. These aren't actual people in costumes. They are the millions of investors, pension funds, and foreign governments who buy government bonds. A bond is basically an IOU from the government. You lend the money, and they promise to pay you back with interest. These investors are the ultimate judge and jury of a government's financial decisions. If they think a government is being reckless, borrowing too much, spending foolishly, they get nervous. And when they get nervous, they do one thing. They demand a higher interest rate to compensate for the risk. This is where the vigilante action happens. By demanding higher rates, they can effectively hold a government hostage. Suddenly, borrowing becomes incredibly expensive, forcing politicians to cut spending and get their act together. They impose discipline when politicians won't. And if you think this is just a theory, let me tell you a story. Flashback to 2022 in the United Kingdom. The new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, announced a massive plan for unfunded tax cuts. She was going all in on the borrow and spend model. The bond vigilantes watched, and they were not impressed. In a matter of days, they went on strike. They started dumping UK government bonds, causing their value to collapse. Interest rates skyrocketed. The UK pension system was pushed to the brink of implosion. It was chaos. The vigilantes sent a clear message: we don't trust your plan. Within weeks, Liz Truss was forced to resign. She became the shortest-serving prime minister in British history, brought down not by a political rival, but by the invisible, powerful force of the global bond market. It was a stark warning to the entire world: ignore the vigilantes at your peril. The endgame. How does this story end? So, with this constant battle between politicians who want to spend and bond vigilantes who demand discipline, where's this all headed? As I see it, there are 4 possible endgames for this global debt addiction. Endgame 1. The cold turkey. Austerity. This is the painful traditional solution. Governments bite the bullet, slash spending, and hike taxes. It's like a crash diet. It might work eventually, but it can throw the economy into a recession, hurt the most vulnerable, and it's politically toxic. Endgame 2. The stealth tax. Inflation. This is the sneaky way out. A government allows inflation to run high. This erodes the real value of the debt that it has to pay back. It's like paying off a $100,000 loan 10 years from now with money that's only worth half as much. The problem: high inflation is a tax on everyone, especially the poor and the elderly. It creates instability and can destroy savings. Endgame 3. The hidden trap. Financial repression. This is a more complex but very real possibility. Governments create rules that essentially force their own citizens and banks to buy government bonds, even at low interest rates. It's a way to lock in a cheap source of funding. This is a quiet, behind-the-scenes way to manage debt, but it punishes savers and distorts the free market. Endgame 4. The Great Escape. Growth. This is the dream scenario. The economy grows so fast that the debt burden shrinks in comparison. It's like getting a massive raise that makes your old credit card bill look tiny. This is the best way out, but it's not easy to achieve. It requires innovation, productivity, and smart long-term investments. So, what does this mean for you? This isn't just an abstract debate for economists in ivory towers. The path our governments choose will directly impact your life. It will determine the interest rates on your mortgage. It will affect the inflation rate that eats away at your savings. It will decide the level of funding for the public services you rely on. It will shape the economic opportunities available to you and your children.
The addiction to debt is one of the defining challenges of our time. It's a complex puzzle with no easy answers, balancing the needs of today against the obligations of tomorrow. It's a tool that has saved us from depressions, but also a poison that could bankrupt nations. So I want to turn it over to you. Now that you understand the stakes, which endgame do you think is the most likely, or the most desirable? The painful cuts of austerity, the stealth tax of inflation, the hidden trap of repression, or the hopeful gamble on growth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation about this. And if you found this breakdown valuable, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to Finance Intel. We're here to give you the clarity you need to navigate this crazy financial world. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.